Thank you for attending the virtual Jared Show, and I'm talking to John Gludlu from the Small Business Institute. John, please could you give us an overview of the Small Business Institute?
Good day, my name is John Gludlu. I'm the CEO of the Small Business Institute. We represent 77 chambers of commerce, both in the informal sector economy as well as in the formal sector economy. The Small Business Institute is really a 77-year-old organization, and it was started representing all businesses, both state-owned enterprises as well as private sector companies. And 3 years ago, our board decided that we should niche ourselves and we should change the name to make it more inclusive. So we became the Small Business Institute. And instead of representing businesses of all sizes, we decided to just represent businesses, SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises. And increasingly, we are now signing up chambers of commerce in the township economy, as well as in the informal sector economy in the villages. So of the 77 chambers which are on our books, we've got about 16 which are coming from the informal sector economy. And in total, we represent about more than 114,000 businesses. And a month ago, we signed up the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce, which also gives us a footprint across the African continent. And of those businesses that we represent, we also represent the medium-sized businesses, which have got the potential to export, grow, as well as to employ more people. But we also represent small enterprises, which fulfill a very important role in the job creation space in our country.
Can you tell us about how the Small Business Institute is helping to create a revival of small businesses in South Africa?
Yeah, so our mission is twofold. The central and core mission, the reason for our existence, is to positively influence the legislative and regulatory environment for SMEs of all, both in the informal sector economy as well as in the formal sector economy, to thrive in South Africa. Because, as you know, the National Development Plan aspires that we should, as a country, generate 90% of new jobs from the SME segment of the economy by 2030. So we really have to treat these guys as rock stars of the economy. That's our mission. How do we do this? We do it in a twofold manner. Firstly, we represent chambers that represent small businesses, and we've got about 700 businesses that are directly affiliated to us as SMEs. And then the second one is we advocate for policies that favor the development of small businesses in our country. And we would like to encourage policymakers to make policies that are based on facts, evidence, and empirical data. So to that effect, what we do is one of the key functions that we undertake every year is to bring new information, is to bring new data and evidence onto the market. We've just done a series of 6 papers which were undertaken and prepared over the last 7 months. We released them in April this year to look into the impact of COVID and how, in a practical manner, policymakers can help SMEs to quickly recover from the coronavirus pandemic.
What do you see as the biggest challenges facing small businesses at the moment?
Well, obviously, the new challenges are the coronavirus pandemic and the continued lockdown mechanisms that we employ to contain its spread. As you know, we've just moved from level 4 to level 3, which means that the supply chains have been disrupted. And then, of course, the new challenge that is faced not only by two provinces of Gauteng and KZN, um, is the civil unrest that we saw in the past fortnight. Those are new challenges. But even before the coronavirus pandemic hit SMEs hard, our SMEs were struggling to breathe, Simon. I'll give you about three examples. First, red tape, bureaucracy. One of our studies showed that it takes up to about 9 working days a month for an SME owner to comply with laws, bylaws, and regulations, whether it's changing your bank account. That's quite a lot of time for an SME. Our preference is that SME owners must spend time with their employees, with their suppliers, in their businesses instead of running around. And what we hope to do as SBI is to take this burden from them, because if you're a big business, you can employ a compliance department of 200 people. That's a very small thing for you. But if you're an SME owner, you don't have that luxury. The second challenge is, of course, late payments by big businesses as well as state-owned companies and government departments. We did have a bit of a traction that last year more than 50 private businesses, big businesses, committed to joining our campaign to pay small businesses on time. On time by our definition means that you're paying small businesses within 30 days of doing the work. And during the COVID period, we have been encouraging big businesses to pre-order so that they assist with cash flow and to pay. If you have a long-standing relationship with an SME supplier, please pay them in advance so that you assist them during this COVID period. Let me mention two last ones. The first one is obviously we are living in a period of rolling power outages. The ESCOM team is trying as much as possible to overcome the challenge. But this is still a reality of our life that every now and then we'll go through load shedding. This has been with us for years now, and they hit hard on the SME segment of the economy because those are the guys who cannot get off the grid, who cannot buy generators, who cannot have alternative sources of energy. We know the president has announced that about 100 megawatts of energy can now be generated by the private sector. But that also means that big businesses have got the ability to get off the grid. It's not small businesses. Small businesses will continue to rely on the national grid. The last challenge, of course, has been the recessionary conditions our economy has found itself. Before COVID, we were in a recession. The cost of doing business was high. The cost of capital was high, and our SMEs were significantly indebted, just like households. So they were struggling to make ends meet. Those are some of the challenges that predated COVID.
COVID has had a huge impact on the global economy, but how has this affected small businesses positively and negatively?
Yeah, COVID has hit the SME segment harder. We know it has destroyed and affected both big and small businesses, but the impact has been particularly devastating to the SME segment of the economy. As part of the six-part series of papers, the first one was to look into the impact of COVID here in South Africa as well as around the world. And one of the most shocking stats, there were two startling findings that came out of that study. The first one was that SMEs were failed both by the private sector as well as by policymakers and government. And the help was there, but help came trickling down very slowly, and it found some of them not in a position of survival at that time. And the second stat that came out was that as many as 55,000 SMEs may not make it through the COVID period. And you know where we are now. And this study came out in October last year. Since then, the environment has not improved much. We did go into level one of the alert level one of the lockdown. But by the end of the year, we were back onto another harder lockdown. The economy was shut down, and there was very little by way of a relief for the economic operators by then. We've just emerged from another harder lockdown, which means that for the last 1 month of the current lockdown, SMEs have been stifled as well, because SMEs fulfill a very important role in the supply chain to big businesses as well. But obviously, two other things have happened. Not only have we run out of the relief measures that were made available to SMEs last year, we have also been hit by this civil unrest of the past fortnight. So SMEs are in a particularly vulnerable position. The stats that we have now in those two provinces, we believe that as many as 40,000 SMEs may have been affected by the riots, either temporarily shut down. Some of them may not come back. That's why it's critically important that policymakers, government, and big business come to the party and try and assist them to quickly rebound, so that those job creators, our rock stars of the economy, can get back onto on their feet and create those jobs. Simon, just to give you a picture of if we lose 40,000 SMEs, what the impact is. I spoke to you about the National Development Plan aspiring that we should create as many as 90% of jobs. The CEO initiative did a study a few years ago, and that study said for us to achieve that aspiration, we needed to be creating about 39,000 SMEs that are sustainable on a yearly basis. Now, if in one fortnight we have destroyed 40,000 SMEs, it means that we have set back that target by 1 year. And we are nowhere near there. By the way, those are new SMEs, but they have to be sustainable. And if we go to the DTIC, the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, says that the biggest hurdle faced by SMEs is the first 2 years. They die at a rate of 70%. So the ecosystem is not supportive enough for SMEs. Now, if we've lost 40,000 of them in the past fortnight, we've set that goal by 1 year behind. But the good news is that, in the last few days, I've received so many calls. From this meeting here with us, I'll be going to another meeting which is convened by government to hear out stakeholders on how and what stakeholders, social partners, labor, government, business, and civil society can do together to assist SMEs. So I think that's very positive news. Hopefully, we listen to each other, especially those who come from the SME segment of the economy, because it's one thing for all of us to be sympathetic. But if we don't listen to exactly what these small guys are doing, our rock stars are doing and are wanting, we're just wasting our time.
The SPI conducts a lot of research into the SMME sector. How does this research play a practical role in helping to support and grow SMEs?
So the first paper that the research paper that we commissioned last year, looked into the impact of COVID. The second one looked into digitalization. It came up with very positive and inspiring stories about how some of our SMEs quickly pivoted their businesses around digitalization. Of course, here the finding was twofold. The first one was that our future lies in the fourth industrial revolution, and we should embrace it instead of delaying it. That's why it is vitally important that we release the high speed, high demand spectrum, so that SMEs can benefit. It's actually not SMEs only, it is students, it is everyone. But Simon, let's not be naive here, because once you have spectrum, it doesn't guarantee, yes, it will significantly lower the cost of data, but there will still be a cost that you pay for data. So hopefully what we can do is we can come to the party as well. The telcos can come to the party as well and provide some kind of relief and subsidy for SMEs to access the spectrum and data, and to take some of their costs away from running around. I think one of the positives that have come out of COVID is that we don't, yes, we miss social interaction, but we don't, that's not the only way of doing business. There are other ways of doing business, like you and I are now talking via virtual platform, but it has to be accessible to everyone. So there are positive stories. We will be running a webinar on how some SMEs have survived COVID in about a month's time. And we'll be taking experiences from businesses that were funded by the private sector, by the Oppenheimer family, as well as the Rupert family. And out of that, we hope that some lessons can be drawn by those who are still going through the COVID pandemic and these stressful times. The last paper we released dealt with how to tackle the disabling environment. In other words, how to make the life of an SME owner easier. And the second last one dealt with the role of local champions, the role of organizations like chambers of commerce, business forums, what they fulfill in the life of an SME owner. They are very important because they take away some of the stress and they share experiences, and then they act as an interface between government and the SME community. In the last paper that we did, which is how to tackle the disabling environment, we come up with some practical suggestions there. One of them is to for policymakers to rely on evidence before they change policies. Please do an impact assessment of what the new policy will do affecting an SME. So, for example, that's Section 18 of the Small Business Act of 1995. But it's never really been applied, and it's been further watered down through instead of doing an impact assessment on SMEs, we're now doing impact assessments on the socio-economic. We think that format and formula is less rigorous than the one of the regulatory impact assessments. So, for example, our budget is a proposal first in the National Parliament. And when it gets adopted, it becomes a piece of legislation. That's never been done the last 27 years of democracy. We think that's a practical step that policymakers can do to really be attentive to the needs and struggles of SMEs. And it will significantly change the approach of government ministers. Practically overnight, all ministers will become ministers of small businesses, because before they contemplate changing laws, introducing new regulations, they will have to think about the impact of small businesses in South Africa. The other one was we get constantly asked to suggest which laws need to change, which laws need to be scrapped. So instead of asking advocates like us and asking academics to nominate the laws that have to be changed, we have said to government, please join our hands and let us ask the SMEs themselves what laws need to be changed. And this is not a new experience. The United Kingdom did it, and it ended up saving government about billions of pounds. So we're saying let's learn from other jurisdictions, but it's very important that we ask the people who are pained, the people who are affected by our laws and policies. Let's ask them, let them tell us where their pain points are. You know, when the research came, we had just emerged from the first hard lockdown, which was very disappointing because online shopping was only allowed a few months later. So, in part, this is how we failed SMEs, because if we had immediately allowed online shopping, life would have been much easier for them. And they are very innovative, by the way. Quite a lot actually, migrated their businesses into online platforms. Um, the events management industry, just like tourism, has been decimated, but there is a new industry that has come up now that never was there before COVID. I'll give you an example. The events producers these days are now producing funerals. Um, I went to a funeral of my brother-in-law a fortnight ago, and his wife was watching his funeral from the hospital bed through the phone. Uh, those guys never used to produce funerals. So those those unemployed journalists have found a new way of making a living. Um, every day I go to memorial services. Um, we complain about things that we never used to complain about, like the quality of the sound and the video is bad. But at least we get to participate in mourning and memorializing our beloved. That industry never used to be there. So the unemployed journalists have found a new way. Um, I'll give you two other examples. Three newspapers, online newspapers, have just come up. Yes, you no longer have iconic brands such as Drum Magazine, Fair Lady, yes. But there are new publications. VuTV is specializing in SMEs, and there's Weekly Mirror. It's a new platform by mostly journalists who have been retrenched and have lost their jobs as a result of COVID. And then there's a Zulu publication, that's a business publication that's come out and launched during the COVID period. So there have been some positives that have come out. Innovation has just been unleashed.
You have a great concept called local champions. Please explain what that is about and why you feel it is so important for supporting SMMEs.
Yeah, so we looked into two towns, surveyed two towns, Mbombela, Nelspruit, and we surveyed Bothaville in the Free State. And we looked because there, what you have, the local champions are the business associations. They make life incredibly easier and bearable for SMEs. Whether you have a problem with the municipality in processing your permits, in processing your license, in getting your water license. If you have an active business community, it makes life incredibly easy. So if we ever needed an advertisement for what we do, this was a very good advertisement that you need active business associations in every one of the 257 municipalities we have in our country. You obviously know the story of Clover, which had to leave Northwest. Thank God they did not leave the country. They just left one province. But if there was a very active business association there, Clover would have had to take its problems to that business association. And there is power in the numbers. And hopefully they would have been listened to coming from a business association instead of just coming from a complaint from one organization. Like I said, big business has an army of lawyers. They can litigate government to the highest court in the land. That's not the luxury that's available to SMEs. And we always encourage SMEs to actually work through their chambers so that they get protection as well as get to be heard. In simple things, I mean, our law is very, very helpful. It says before a municipal budget is passed, there has to be a consultative process. But you and I know that those consultations actually turn into information sessions. This is what we're going to do. Instead of saying, what do we need? Please tell us what laws you need, how much money has to go to local economic development. Um, so one of the things that we are doing is we're negotiating an MOU with the local government association, SALGA, so that we have a more collaborative approach. We're aspiring to do two things. First, to have areas of cooperation where we tackle problems together with SALGA and their members and our businesses, our business members. But we also want to have a mechanism to resolve disputes. If there are disputes that cannot be resolved at a local government level, at a municipal level, it should be escalated to a structure in the province and ultimately to myself and Mr. Kolile George, who's the chief executive of SALGA. And a week ago, we signed an MOU with an organization so that we promote the concept of smart and healthy cities, smart and safe cities, so that we use data and technology to make our cities safe and to make our cities smarter. And we're hoping to roll that out across the length and breadth of our country. And we'll be also promoting it through SALGA because we are in this together. That's our approach. So one of the things we are doing, our chamber in Nelspruit, as well as one in Rustenburg, we're trying to work in a practical manner to assist those municipalities there to become functional, because we do have a problem of corruption in our country, and it's a big problem. But we also have a problem of incompetence, where people genuinely don't know what to do and don't know how to do their job. So we are saying, instead of us criticizing from outside, business must get involved, roll up their sleeves, and assist the municipality. We're not asking for tenders. We're not asking for businessmen to sit and adjudicate tenders. No, that would be conflict of interest. We are saying where they can assist by insourcing some skills, let them assist. So we're piloting this in two municipalities, Nelspruit as well as Nelspruit and Rustenburg. Hopefully we can then take away some experiences and duplicate them everywhere else in the country, because as the Auditor General was releasing her figures, the picture is not improving. 90% of municipalities are struggling to file clean audits. 70% of municipalities are struggling to provide clean audits. And that's not a very good picture, because when an investor comes to the country, they don't come to Pretoria, they don't come to national government, they come to a locality, they operate at a local level. So if we cannot roll out red carpet treatment for them, what are we saying? The president has his 1.3 trillion investment program target, but we treat investors shabbily. So we all have to roll up our sleeves and get to work, assist each other. We are in this together. So those are the two practical examples. So if I may, in all towns, there are small businesses and big businesses. So if I had to make a call to big businesses, over and above, pay your invoices on time, I would say please support those business associations. They fulfill a very important role. They are there to assist SMEs to run their businesses so that they advocate for them, whether it's with government, labor unions, civil society. So if you can, please assist them, help them out with running costs.
What are the positive ways that government is playing its part to help small businesses?
Yeah, government could be doing much more. And there is one thing that I will again be raising today in the meeting they have called. Our SMEs need grant funding. They don't need more debt. They don't need loans. We can slice up the loans and call them soft loans, low interest loans, long repayment periods. They're up to here with loans, just like households. The most effective intervention government has done, for which they have to be applauded, has been the social relief measures. They have averted a humanitarian crisis by this 350 rands grant for anyone who's not on some kind of social grant. They've averted a humanitarian crisis in our country. And for that, we have to applaud them. But where should they be assisting these rock stars, job creators, and growth creators in the country? I think they need to assist them through some grant funding. Almost a year ago, the government announced this 200 billion rand credit guarantee scheme, which was backstopped by the Reserve Bank and National Treasury. We know only about 30 billion rand of that money has been taken up. And the reason is very simple. There's just no appetite for more debt. This economy is struggling. These SMEs are struggling to breathe with the current levels of debt they have. So there's very little. So if there's more that they can do, it will be extend some grants to SMEs, especially now because we've just emerged from another hard lockdown. The lockdowns have to be accompanied by some kind of socio-economic relief. We know the tariff system for those employees who were laid off. I think it must have been today that they got paid their unemployment benefits. But SME owners tend not to be registered with the UIF. So if there's more that government can do, it will be providing some grant funding to the SMEs that are still distressed. Not only in those two provinces, life is hard everywhere. The lockdown impacts everyone. Even this riots of the last fortnight have disrupted all the supply chains beyond those two provinces, Gauteng and KZN. Here's the last call I would make to government. Please stop over-engineering, over-designing the solutions. Keep them simple, and please just ask the people who are affected by these solutions what they need. Listen to them attentively. We'll get somewhere.
Thanks for that great insight, John. That was John Gludlu from the Small Business Institute.